What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to start a new series. I haven't decided on a name yet or a format, so consider this more of a test run than anything, but I'm looking at a new series similar to how I used to do the Market Watch, but I find that to be a very saturated market, no pun intended, and also it's just rather difficult to keep up with and produce, interesting content. I'm trying to sort of streamline my videos so they're around the 10-minute mark, and it sort of keeps people engaged. People watch, for a significant duration of the video, and you don't feel like I'm just kind of like dragging you along. So I think this type of format might work a little bit better. Now, what I've done is I've compiled a list of cards for this sample video here. Looking at price trends, I think one of the really interesting things I've discovered during my time away, I've dabbled into Magic the Gathering a little bit, and they have a site called MTG Stocks, which is basically a fully comprehensive tracker of movement of prices across all of Magic's different products, singles, and so forth. It's a really cool tool if you're interested in finance like I am, just to look at that stuff and sort of track prices. Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have something quite to that level. The most accurate I was able to find is YuGiOhPrices.com, which also has an app and is the source I used for some of this data, primarily for the percentages. I would like to see something like that come out for Yu-Gi-Oh that's a bit more automated and wide scale. I've sort of noticed that there's some inconsistencies in the trends with Yu-Gi-Oh prices, but it's still enough for me to sort of put this out there and just kind of take a look at market movement, see where things are going, and also just see whether or not, certain cards might be worth picking up or holding on to. And so that's what we're going to do today as we jump into the video, and it's only right we start with Fallen of Albaz. There are a lot of different things going for Albaz as a whole right now. The new structure deck came out giving it a common printing, so it is a very affordable card if you want to play it. The highest rarity, being the secret rare, is pretty high up there and has continued to move up for quite a bit. It's Rise of the Duelist, so it's very hard to find, and people are going to want to play highest rarity, which leaves Fallen of Albaz Ultra Rare as sort of a mid-range rarity, and I gotta be honest, I think it's actually worth a pickup at this price. Now, the market low at the time I made this video was $1.25, so you could pick them up pretty cheap, although there aren't a ton of people with multiple copies. A lot of people have like single listings, so you'd probably want to combine shipping to maximize any value you get there. The market price is about $1.50, so you see they're selling for a pretty significant amount. In the past 3 weeks, that price is up almost 10%. If you go back even when this card first came out, when the Megatins dropped in September, we were looking at around $5 a copy, and it slowly moved down from there. So this is probably an all-time low for the Ultra Rare, and as those tins sort of fade out of relevance, you can still find them on some store shelves. I think there were just copious amounts of them put out. People might be looking towards this a bit in the future. So making the investment around $1.25, $1.50, if you're interested in playing the deck and don't particularly want the commons, but don't want to shell out the very high amounts for the secrets, this is trending upwards, and I think in about maybe 3 to 6 months we could see this around $5, provided that we don't get another alternate reprint foiling. We know it's going to be an ultimate rare, but it's hard to count ultis in terms of budget players pricing, because typically ultis are very hard to obtain and command really high value, especially when it's a popular card. So, Fallen of Albaz with a 9% upswing in the past 3 weeks. It's going to be interesting to see where this card goes, and we'll definitely look in at it, from time to time, just to sort of track it, see where it's going. But it's definitely a card worth keeping an eye on, and I do think it could be worth picking up right now if it's something you're interested in playing and want a foil version. Now, Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, falling in line with Albaz, is up quite a bit. In the past week, actually, it's up 91%. If you go back the past 3 months, give or take, it's actually up almost 200%, and it goes up even farther from there. People have started to really look at this card, especially because it's just a really oppressive card you can put on board to burn your opponent whenever they play their cards, and if you have 2 of these, you're doing 1,000 points of damage whenever they play a card, which obviously is a bit oppressive. This card was around $2 for a while, went up to about $5, and as you've seen has just surged since, nearly doubling in price over the past week before being higher than that. I do have to think this is probably going to be an all-time high for this card, unless it does something at an upcoming event. With the Megatins on the horizon, there's no reason to think this wouldn't slot in there. I think a secret rare printing would be pretty cool, and it would look nice as well, but I think $22, $25 max is where this would peak before it starts to go down. My personal suggestions, so to speak, would be to maximize that. If you have it and you're happy with it, then great. If you bought it at $2 and you just picked it up to have and now you can play it without having to shell out the big money, that's awesome. But I do think this is going to be around the highest surge that we see before it starts to dip down. It could be interesting, though. It is Burst of Destiny, which is regarded as a good set, although we do know Burst will be in the Megatins in some capacity, so it's reasonable to think that Masquerade will be in there as well. Next up, Mathmech Edition. This card, if you're familiar with Mystic Fighters, was always pretty pricey, especially for a super rare. It was around $4 to $5 for a while, and then just kind of surged from there. It sat around 15 to 20, even going as high as 25 at one point. As Mystic Fighters just became a more valuable set, the card wasn't accessible, and Mathmech is definitely a fan favorite archetype. But with the most recent revelation that Mathmech will be getting new support, and that support is pretty damn good, this card's price surged even more. However, it was just recently announced that Mathmech Edition is going to be reprinted in Ghosts from the Past 2, which comes out in about 2 weeks, causing the price to surge, but it hasn't taken as big of a drop just yet as I thought, and that's probably because of its scarcity. In the past week, the card's down 37% and has been dropping like a rock, nearly 50% in the past month, since the announcement, of course, with Ghosts from the Past, and I think that price will continue to trend downwards. So if you're interested in picking this up and you want the original rarity, I would say give it another week or so, and then you should be able to scoop these up around the $5 mark. But you could also just wait and pick them up as Ultra to match some of the other Ultra Rare reprints that are coming out in Ghosts from the Past. Edition is definitely one of the better Mathmech support cards, and a card you'd probably want to maximize at 3, but just keep in mind the fact that it is on a downward trajectory. Next up, Dogmatic. Maximus is actually on the upswing. In the past week or so, it's up about 6%, but it's been higher than that. This card was down to about $4 to $6 for quite a while when the Megatins came out. You could get the Ultra and still can for very, very cheap. I'm guessing as people sort of move away from the tins now and look to put their money elsewhere, this being a lower cost, high rarity version of a card that some Dogmatica builds do play, and just being Rise of the Duelist in general and not getting a reprint in the structure deck like Fleur de Lis did, has caused this price to start to move upwards. So you do see people are buying it. It's definitely a card to keep an eye on. It's not exactly a massive percent at 6%, but looking at its just 3-month history, it's definitely a card that could continue to go up further as the tins get further away. I don't really see a scenario in which this card is going to be eligible or slated for reprint anytime soon, so just food for thought as you consider whether or not this is a card you might be in the market for. Ruddy Rose Dragon, of course the worst name ever, is up a lot. I didn't even realize it had dropped so much. It rose to about $30, $35, no pun intended, with Sword Soul's prominence back when Burst of Destiny came out, and just the fact that it was pretty hard to get. I think it's sort of seen less play going forward, especially now that we have cards like Baron de Fleur and other synchros, and Sword Soul as a whole is just kind of on the outside looking in of the meta. But this card actually dipped down to about $9 again, which was its all-time low, and has slowly started moving back up. Again, I'm not entirely sure what the reasoning is behind that, whether or not it's because some of the pile decks are playing some of the Rose Dragons, and it's just an overall decent option to have, but it is up about 20% in value in the past 3 weeks, which realistically isn't the biggest dollar amount, around 3, but it could continue to move. The Megatins, again, is very much a real possibility for this. I don't see why it wouldn't be in there, but with the news that they are adding a lot of reprints, things like Droplet, Ash Blossom, and so forth, it's entirely possible this could skip the Megatins. I have no idea. I can't predict the future, but just worth noting that it is on its way back up, and we've seen that when this card does see play, it can reach really high proportions. So if you're interested in picking it up now, I do think $11 is probably an okay price, but just be aware that it will end up being reprinted at some point, unless Konami drastically changes course with the way they've done some of these generic card reprints. And lastly, for this week, the biggest change, I was very surprised by this one too, and it does have to do with the YCS Despia deck playing this, and it got top 8, and it's a decent card in general. Obviously, you can fuse with this, you can get additional searching. The combo I think he was playing with Frights for Patchwork. This is a common. It also has a super rare printing and fusion enforcers, which is a little bit higher than this, but they're all under $10. This card was about $1 for the longest time. In the past 3 weeks, it's actually up 100% in value from around 3.5, and it's up even more significantly if you go back 6 months. I think it's up about 300%. This is a card you can find in bulk. I used to see this in bulk at my locals all the time. I never thought to pick them up because I never thought we'd see it go that high, and I definitely think this could be a decent time to try to offload these because of the fact that this is a decent card, but it may not be the most optimal package to play with the Albaz, Despia, and even if it is, you could very well see this card reprinted as a common in an Astral pack or OTS pack, whatever it is, coming up pretty soon, which would of course drive down the prices at very least of the commons because they'll now be more accessible. So that's going to wrap up this first inaugural video. Let me know what you guys think of this sort of approach. just kind of like a brief look at the market, some of the trending cards moving up and down. I thought it'd be interesting to include both. Do you think like the 3-week perspective is a good way to look at it? Should we look at like a month? Should we look at a week? I don't know how often I'll be putting these videos out, so I don't want to do like a 24-hour change because that could just be so drastically different by the time a video actually gets posted. But let me know what you guys think. If you did enjoy the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Click the bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted. And as always, leave a comment down below. The interaction helps a ton, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys have to say about the videos and topics discussed. But until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.